Hello, everybody. My name is Dave Harden. I'll be your host this evening for the Einstein Retirement Workshop version of Social Security filing strategies and more. We need to do a quick audio check. I'll ask you to help me out if you're on. If you could use the chat function, and if you can hear me, just give me a heads up. Sounds great. I can hear you. Audio okay, anything like that. Or just I'd love to hear the state that you're in. If I see that, I'll know that you can hear me. I'm in Pennsylvania tonight. We usually get people from all over the country, so it's always nice to see where they're from. If you're on, most people show up in the next couple of minutes. So if you're on, it would be helpful if you could respond. Hey, thanks, Lynn, T. Lynn, from Oklahoma. What a great state. All right. Looks like you are from YouTube. Chris, you can hear me as well. You're on YouTube or you're on Facebook. So we've got the main ones covered. Indiana, thanks. Missouri, Tennessee. I told you we were going to be all over the place. All right. Sounds wonderful. Why don't we do a little bit? We've got a couple of questions in us. Jennifer from Maine. Thanks. Let me pull up the trivia. And I'll ask, there we go. We'll just do a couple of quick questions to keep you entertained until the top of the hour. Here we go. You can answer these questions by using the same chat function that you just used, and then we'll get started. All right, so how are the first three numbers of your Social Security number derived? Everybody has 9 numbers, 3 numbers, and 2 numbers, and 4 numbers. Those first 3, they're sort of special. Where do they come from? Is it A, zip code of your birth city, B, zip code of the issuing Social Security office, C, random, or D, they represent the state that you were born in? A, B, C, or D? Just throw in your answers. Hi, Michelle from North Carolina. Great to have you on board. Thanks. There's a D, I see. Interesting. Anybody else? Let's get through these as quickly as we can so we can do a couple of these before the top of the hour. A, B, C, or D? Zip code of your birth city, zip code of the issuing Social Security office, random, or state that you were born in. I see D's seem to have it tonight. All right, let's take a peek. There we go. It's B. They actually represent the zip code of the issuing Social Security office. If you're close to my age, and I'm a baby boomer, so I'm guessing most of you are too, you probably remember when you got a job or close to getting a job, you went and got a Social Security number because you needed it to be able to get paid. And that place that you went back then represented the first 3 numbers of your Social Security. Interesting, huh? All right. Why have more than 40,000 people claimed 078051120 as their own Social Security number? Was it A, the number was stolen and sold over 40,000 times? B, the Social Security machine got stuck and simply kept printing it out and issuing that number to 40,000 people in a row? Or was it a copy of a real Social Security card number that was included in a wallet that was sold at Woolworths to thousands and thousands of people? 40,000 people claimed it. So it would have been a lot. What do you think? A, B, or C? We are almost at the top of the hour, so help me out. Let's respond quickly so we can get through this. A, B, or C? I see some B's. I see a C, another C, another C. D is not an option. All right, C. All right. There's an A. All right, we've got the whole gamut here. All right, we are almost at time, so let's take a look. What's the answer? Drum roll, it's C. This is an actual card, a Social Security card, that the marketing director that was designing this wallet wanted to put some things in it to get going. And they actually used their assistant's Social Security card and accidentally sent it to the printer without getting one printed up first. And that's why it happened. Now it's 100% illegal to do that, by the way. Not supposed to copy your social security card, not even supposed to laminate it, which is sort of interesting, but that's how it works. All right. We're going to pull up the actual workshop here. If I can get, where is it? Here we go. All right. Thanks for participating. Those are always fun. All right, let's dig in. Let me do a little bit of housekeeping. First off, welcome. My name is Dave Harden. I'll do a little more formal introduction in a second, but let me get through some housekeeping. People ask often, how long is this going to take, Dave? It's about an hour and 20 minutes to get through, at the end of which I always do a Q&A, a question and answer period. Here's how you can help me with that. During the workshop, even now, somewhere I'm going to say something that might trigger a question. If you've got a question or you develop a question, don't wait till the end. Put it in. You can put it in right now. That will give us a chance to sort of get them together and be able to pull them up immediately after the workshop so we can get through as many questions as possible and not bore you while we're waiting and twiddling our thumbs to get some up. That does not mean that you can't ask a question at the end. You certainly can. We're happy to take those and we'll get through them as well. But this will help us get it going and be a lot smoother in the process. All right. My name is Dave Harden. I am a registered financial consultant in RFC. That's a designation from the International Association of Registered Financial Consultants. It's a planning and investment management designation, mostly for retirement. Somebody's asking when you receive the workbook. At the end of the workshop, you'll get a chance to get that. So bear with me. I guess I answered your question before the end, didn't I? All right. So I also carry the NSSA. That's the National Social Security Advisors designation. It's the only college accredited designation for Social Security and taxes in the country. I'm also the author of the Social Security workbook that you are asking about and that you'll receive at the end of the workshop. That being said, I also own a registered investment advisory firm, City Center Advisors. I need to disclose this simply because the SEC requires me to do that. I carry a 65 license. I am a fiduciary advisor. I act that way with all clients and prospects, and even tonight, I'm required to do that. So I'm a fiduciary advisor. City Center Advisors is we've been incredibly successful. I own it with my son and another partner. We have done really, really well. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary, January 16th. Very proud of the work that we've done. I guess we have clients in about 43 states, and I think 1,231 client accounts. It's wildly more successful than I dreamed about it when I opened it up. To work with my son is one of the greatest pleasures of my life. He is gifted at advising and doing the things that I'm not as good with in terms of managing the books and stuff. He's much better at that, and holds me accountable. So I love him. He's just a great guy. I'll talk a little more about my other partner a little later, but we're gifted and just blessed by the stuff that we've done. That being said, I want to put you a little bit at ease. We're not going to talk about investments tonight. I'm not here to sell you an investment. We're going to concentrate on Social Security. That's why we're here. That's what you're going to get. So you can rest easy a little. All right, so let's get started. Why is Social Security such a hot topic? Every single day, 10,000 of us are turning 65. That's 70,000 a week, 280,000 a month last year, 3.64 million turned 65. And that's going to happen every year for the next about 10 or 11 years. It will continue after that, just not quite at that level. But there's a huge number of people who are getting older and older and older and getting the age where they're thinking about retirement and wondering what to do and what's right. Maybe more importantly, 65% of middle income Americans. That's us. That's not Elon. And it's not the guy that's living in the cardboard box on Main Street. It is you and I. And we derive more than 50% of our retirement income from Social Security, from one single source. And then since 1985, American corporations have eliminated more than 84,000 pensions. Now, I don't mean 84,000 people, I mean 84,000 corporations. Some of those individual corporations had more than 100,000 employees. One day they offered a pension, they had a pension, and the next day said, "This is too expensive, we're not doing this anymore." And it changed not just corporate America forever, it changed how we deal with retirement forever. When I first started in the industry, we used to call back in the 70s, the late 70s, we used to call retirement the three-legged stool: your pension, your Social Security, and your savings. For the vast majority of us these days, it's a two-legged stool. And if you ever try to sit on a three-legged stool, you can imagine a two-legged stool is not easy to sit on. And then maybe the most concerning of all is that 46.1% of Americans statistically currently pass away with less than enough to fund their own funeral in their bank account. They don't have it. They started their retirement sometimes with hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe more than that, but they ended up essentially broke. If that doesn't send a shiver down your spine, I don't know what will. But the real question there is, if that's the case, the question that you've got to ask is, how in the world did that happen? Because if you don't know that, how are you going to avoid it? And that's absolutely something that you want to avoid. So, do you insure your home? Almost everyone does. Your car, I live in Pennsylvania, as I said before, I don't have a choice. And then, do you insure your health? Well, interestingly, you do. If you're looking at Social Security, if you're thinking, hey, what should I do to pick my Social Security? You also have Medicare. And Medicare is a government sponsored health insurance program for people who have reached age 65 and beyond. So the answer is yes, you have insured your health. How about your retirement? Well, that's exactly what Social Security is. It's a government sponsored retirement insurance program. Government sponsored, but still an insurance program. And you have it, and you've paid dearly for it. Maybe I'll talk a little more about what dearly means in a minute. All right, what's the risk of outliving your income? Because if we're talking about when to take Social Security, the first thing we have to ask is, how long do we think we might live? And you might be surprised. This is census data. If you're a single male in our country today, age 65, you have a 50% chance, a coin flip, that you're living to 85. I don't think that surprises most of us. But you have a 25% chance of living to 92. 1 out of 4. If you're a single female, 50% chance you're living to 88, and a 25% chance you're living to 94. And if you're a couple, two people who love each other, it's all it takes. And what do I mean by that? Two people who are concerned for the other person. I'll give you an example. Maybe 6 months ago, my wife noticed something on my back that she didn't like the looks of and made me go into the dermatologist. Now, I go once a year, every year, because 10 years ago, my sister, who I grew up with, died of skin cancer. We were those kids that ran out the first day of summer and got burned to get it over with so we could get tan. I know, stupid, but we weren't as smart back then. The 60s came and went, and we just didn't pay attention to stuff like that. We actually thought we were doing a good job. Well, and if we had sunscreen, if somebody offered it to us, we were putting baby oil on to get darker. That's just the way it was. Well, the fact is, the thing on my back was a mole. It was nothing. It was perfectly normal. But my wife pushed me to do it. And if you have two people who care about one another, who hear a cough or a rattle in somebody's chest, or and then force them or push them to go and get it treated, that makes a difference. In fact, if you're one of those people over 65 that's in a couple, if you're the male, you have a 50% chance of living not to 85 but to 92. And if you're the female, you have a 50% chance, listen to this ladies, of living to 97. That's amazing. It is amazing. We are living longer and longer. In fact, this is Ethel Carterham. She's English. She's 115. She'll be 116 in about a month and a half. She is the oldest living person in the world right now, but she took the place of a woman who was named Sister Lucas, a nun who was 116, who died a while ago. Connie Tanaka died in April 22. She was 119. And before her was another lady in Japan that was 116. But before her, there was a lady in Jamaica who lived to 122. Now, you'll notice I said Japan, Jamaica, England. Sister Lucas is in Italy. That's not Americans, right? But Americans are getting up there too. In fact, if you'd have looked at the list 15 years ago of the oldest 100 people in the world, there were, I think, one or two Americans on it. But you look today, it's chock full of Americans. We are living longer and longer. Our parents and grandparents are living longer and longer. I often have people in these workshops tell me, "Oh, my mother's 102." Yeah, and you already know, many of you know, they call us the sandwich generation because our kids are living in the basement and our parents are living upstairs, or we're taking care of them, or then they're in a assisted living or a nursing home and we're visiting them every day. We are a sandwich generation, and it's because our parents are living longer and our kids aren't flying the nest very quickly. Um, Look, here's what we're going to cover today: benefit basics, how it works, how you get Social Security, strategies for married couples, options for divorced individuals, options for widows and widowers. Now, if you're single, going, wait a minute, Dave, what about me? Social Security was designed for you. It's all about you. But if you're worried, are we going to talk about anything special? You see the next word on the list, taxes. Boy, do you have to pay attention here. It is a huge problem for all of us, whether you're married or divorced or widowed. But taxes and single people are especially a problem, and we're going to dig into it in a big way. And then coordinating benefits. I know some of you are thinking, wait a minute, isn't there no tax on Social Security anymore? No, that's not how it works. And I'll get into that in just a few minutes. All right. How do we get Social Security? How do you qualify? First off, you had to work at a Social Security cover job, a place where you paid into Social Security and then your employer matched that. Now, if you were self employed, you already know the bad news. You got to pay both sides of that with zero discount. Now, they take the highest 35 years of your earned wage income to calculate your Social Security benefit. Not the first 35 years you work, not the last, not the middle, individually the highest years. Each one, it could be in any order over any period of time, as long as you were working. Many of us have worked for 50 years or more, or close to that. They're going to take the highest 45. Why is this important? Well, if you don't have 35 years and you're even thinking about taking your benefit, you should think twice. If you don't have 35 years, let's say you have 34, here's how they calculate it. They take the only 34 years they can take, they add them all up, they prorate them by date, and I could talk about that in a minute. And then they add them all up and they divide by not 34, but 35 still. It's like they added a zero, and that's what you get. So If you understand math at all, you know that adding zeros to a division problem makes the number much smaller. Some of you have a missing year. Some of you have 5. Some of you have 10. You only need 10 years or 40 quarters to get Social Security retirement benefits. A quarter is January, February, March, April, May, June, and so on. A quarter, you have to earn at least $1,890 this year. That's prorated every year. If you go back, say 1982, that's about $212, $218, something like that. So it's gone up a lot. But once you have those 40 credits, you qualify whether you have the 35 years or not. The 35 years determines how much you get. The 40 credits determines that you get the benefit at all. Here's what's important. Let's say the other thing is, let me just mention this. It may be that you don't know that you have missing years. Many of you have not checked your own Social Security record to make sure that your income is adequately and correctly represented. Look, I had a year in 1996 where I had an income. I reported it. I paid my taxes. I filed them. Everything was fine. But I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, I noticed when I looked at my Social Security report that year represented a 0. I literally went in, figured out something's wrong. I didn't have the tax records from 1996. That was, my goodness, 30 years ago. Even 15 years ago, it was 15 years before. I just don't keep them that long. So what did I do? I went to the IRS website, www.irs.gov. I put in a request for a form, 4506T. I got that form. I filled it out for the tax return or my tax transcript from that specific year, 1996. Got it, proved that I had filed, proved that I had paid in, presented that to Social Security, and about 4.5, 5 months later, they fixed it. I think I contacted them 2 or 3 times during that, but they got it and they fixed it. It didn't make a huge difference, but it made a difference in my actual benefit. Now, I've seen people in my career who have been missing 9 years for a gentleman that had an employer that just didn't pay the IRS the money that they had collected on his behalf. They kept it. We fixed that by doing exactly the same thing. The IRS went after the employer, but they credited immediately, well, 4 or 5 months later, my client. This is stuff that you have to do. Now, the question is, are there any reductions? I want to talk about the Social Security Fairness Act for 2025. This is the big change last year in Social Security. Let me explain what it was, and then I'll explain how it's changed. If you had worked for the federal government, for instance, and you earned a pension, or the military and you had a pension, or the railroad and you had a pension with at least 10 years of work history, some state governments, some county governments, some local governments, cities, some school districts that opted out of Social Security, they had that right if they were municipalities, in favor of paying more into their pension program. And nope, I mean, this happened for years and years and years. It still happens. Imagine that government worker puts in money, works for 30 years, but retires at 55. And then decides after a year or so he doesn't want to sit home. He's too bored. He wants something to do. He's too young to retire. So he goes out and gets another job, but in the private sector. And he gets his 40 quarters. Now he is qualified for his pension and he's earned a Social Security benefit. Congratulations. Well, the WP, the windfall elimination provision, that has been in place for almost 3 decades, 2.5 decades, said, hey, no, 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 you don't have 30 plus years paying into Social Security and you have a government pension. So you keep the government pension, but we're going to arbitrarily reduce your Social Security benefit, even though you paid for it, even though your employer paid for it. Now, the GPO was even worse than that. The GPO said, hey, let's say I work for the government for 40 years and I have a wonderful pension, but my spouse, she didn't work for the government. She worked in the private sector, but I'll use my wife as an example. She taught for about 7 years, and then we started having kids, and then she took off, and she took off until the youngest one was in second grade, and then she went back to work. But she didn't have 30 years. That was a big chunk out of her employment history. And as a result, she didn't have that. Well, the GPO would say, hey, if I had that pension and she still had her Social Security, I might have thought to myself, hey, if something happens to me, she's going to be fine. She'll inherit my pension. She has her Social Security. She's going to be better off than we are now because she won't have to feed me. Except the government says that the GPO, the government pension offset, we like to call it the grumpy partner offset, said that you get the pension, but we're going to reduce because you don't have 30 plus years in the private sector paying into Social Security. We're going to reduce your Social Security, or guess what? We're going to eliminate it. We're just going to say, no, you don't get it. This went on for decades. It was incredibly unfair. I know some people say, well, they're double dipping. No, they paid for it. When you get a pension from your employer, you paid for it. It was a form of your employment income. And when you get Social Security, it's not something you just get. You paid for it dearly. Well, the government said, hey, this is unfair. Finally, they passed a law, and last year, January 5th, they signed it into law. Now, whether you have those things or not, you get all of your Social Security. In fact, they're going to pay you back. If you haven't received this already, they're going to pay you back all the way to December of 2023. Now, you might ask, why not before that? Well, just say thank you and move on, because you're not going to get any more than that. All right, how does Social Security work? You put in or contribute 6.2% of your pay up to a maximum this year of $184,500. That increases every year. It's scheduled to increase every year, and I don't know, it's in the 2050s, 2050s, that it hits $1 million or something like that. And it's gone up. This is 2014, that was like 114,000. So it's gone up considerably just in the last 10 years, 11 years. Your employer matches that 6.2% exactly for a total of 12.4%. 12.5% is 1/8. So 1/8 essentially of your paycheck, every dime of it has gone into Social Security from the very first paycheck you ever got until the very last one you get, period. It's a huge amount of money. Business Insider magazine did an article about 4 or 5 years ago, said an average couple $50,000 income that they between Social Security and Medicare contributed prorated over $740,000 to Social Security. I wish I could see your hands and ask you to raise them if anybody would say, hey, can I just get that back? That's just not the way it works. Now, today's contributions cover today's benefit. Basically, Social Security is a pay-as-you-go system. The money we contribute today, this month, pays out the benefits next month. It's been that way since its inception in 1935, sorry. Just got a little ahead of myself there. In 1935, it was signed into law as a pay-as-you-go system. That's why they didn't actually make the first payout until 1940, because they had to gather enough money to pay out benefits and be sustainable about it. But the money going in now pays out next month. It's just the way it works. But that has worked incredibly well over the years. But it's worked well for a couple reasons. One is in 1935, the average worker lived to 63. Social Security benefits started at 65. The generation that was at 65 was about this big compared with the generation that fought World War II that was much bigger. And then that greatest generation was funded by the baby boomers, who were still much bigger. Do you see the issue here? Anybody know how many millennials there are? There's 77 million baby boomers. Surprisingly, there's 81 million millennials, but that's not way bigger. And that brings up the question about solvency. So when we talk about solvency, which is a very hot topic in Social Security today, I'm going to give you a take on it that you probably haven't heard, but I'm going to tell you exactly how it is and why some people have diligently tried to pull the wool over baby boomers' eyes in terms of solvency. Now, 1983 was an incredibly important year for Social Security. It's the year that Congress woke up and said, uh-oh, we got a problem. And the problem is called baby boomers. It's the year that you got the letter from Social Security. I don't know if you remember this. That's a long time ago, right? 43 years ago. But I remember that letter like it was yesterday. My wife and I both got letters from Social Security on the same day. And we're like, what's this about? Well, the letter said something like this: since Social Security's inception, full retirement age has always been age 65. But guess what? For you, if you're born after 1943 but before 1954, it's no longer 65, it's 66. And if you're born after 1954, for each year you're born after, add 2 months. So 55, 60, 66 in 2 months, 56, 66 in 4 months, and so on until you reach birth year 60, where it ends up being 66 in 12 months or 67. And then everybody from 1960 after is 67. Now, I remember sitting in front of my wife and with, a little bit of a gap in my jaw, wondering, uh-oh. But I wasn't worried about the extra year. What I was worried about is how many more letters am I going to get before I turn 66? Turns out I didn't get any more. But people worry all the time. And they did that because they needed more money to fund. And they didn't want to raise the taxes. So currently, today, as we stand, there is 100% funding for Social Security through 2035. So 9 more years. What happens after that? Here's the thing that I get nervous about. People say, oh, Social Security is going to automatically pay you less. Social Security will stop paying benefits. That's just not the case. But it is funded roughly 83 cents on the dollar thereafter just from ongoing contributions. 83 cents on the dollar. This is not a how do we fund Social Security problem. This is how do we fund a 17 cents problem. Don't misunderstand me. It's a lot of money, but it's not a catastrophic amount of money. There are 4 basic proposals to solve this. 1, increase the minimum retirement age. Currently it's 62 to 64.5. That does not fix the problem. It helps, but it doesn't fix the problem. Increase the full retirement age from 66 or 67 to 70 or 72. That does not fix the problem. It's sort of worthless to do. It won't fix the problem. It'll help a little, but it'll help in 20 years. It won't help now. Here's the one that fixes the problem completely. Increase the payroll tax. Now, this would have fixed the problem last year, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, would have fixed it in 1983. It's never been done. The OMB did a study about 4 years ago. It would have taken, if the Social Security contribution was raised from that 6.2 and 6.2 to the employer, 6.2 to the employee by 1 point, half a point each, 6.7 and 6.7 would have fixed this problem for about the next 70 years. But every year we delay, it takes more money to do. Why haven't they done that? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. But whatever it is, they're going to eventually do it. And here's the last one: reduce benefits. Yeah, we'll just pay everybody 25% less, except they can't do that. So the Social Security benefit that you get is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. If it defaults on its debt, our bond market, our that we have $37 trillion of debt with, will collapse. Nobody would ever buy our bonds. It won't happen. It can't happen. The government cannot relinquish a debt, and certainly not one as visible as paying people who have paid it. Remind you that everybody says, "Oh, it's an entitlement program." Let me tell you, Social Security is an entitlement if you've worked 5 years and you get disability for the rest of your life. It's not an entitlement program if you pay in all your life and then get Social Security retirement benefits. Period. That's not an entitlement. You earned those benefits. You paid for them dearly, dearly. I just told you, average couple 4 or 5 years ago was $740,000 in money put into these. That's not chicken feed. This is a huge deal. Now, let me tell you why I'm not worried about this. I was at a conference last April out in Coronado Bay, California. It was 200 of the top advisors in the country were invited to this. I was honored to be amongst them and was impressed that I got there. These guys that were on the stage were some of the guys that I've been listening to for decades. They're the smartest people in the industry, and I look up to them. I revere them. I've gleaned from them like crazy, and I was just am very, very blessed to be there. But one of the things they did is they had these breakout sections, and one of them was on Social Security. And I talk a lot about Social Security in my practice and workshops all over the place. I've spoken about it in forums. I've written about it. I've done tons of stuff. So I went. I sat right in the middle, probably 4 rows back from the center. And as they started to come in, there was 5 chairs, the moderator and 4 speakers. And I didn't know the moderator. The very first speaker I recognized. I've seen him speak before. He's a former director of the Social Security Administration. Didn't know the next two. The fourth one I didn't know, but when he was introduced, he was also a former director of the Social Security Administration. One from each party, by the way, which I think is fascinating. I was with bated breath wondering if they would argue with each other. And interestingly, they didn't. But they gave a wonderful presentation. But at the end of the presentation, the first they did was just like I'm going to do tonight, a Q&A. And the room knew what the first question was going to be. It was going to be solvency. Nobody even thought it would be something else. What about solvency? What's going to happen when it runs out of money? What happens? And both of them said the same thing. Don't worry about it. It's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. And one of them reminded us that, look, a few years ago during COVID, our government pulled out of the hat like a magic trick $4.5 trillion to fund something we had no idea about a month beforehand. We had no idea how long it was going to last or even if it was necessary, but we manufactured $4.5 trillion to try and fix a problem we weren't sure existed. We know this problem exists, and we know that failure would be catastrophic. Do you not think the government is going to figure out how to fund this? It's impossible. They have to. But what if they don't? Don't worry, they have to. And then one of them told a quick anecdote, and I'll end with this. If it said the principles of Social Security are so profound that that you never get less than you got the year before. That if your Social Security, if your Medicare premium goes up by $100 for next year, but your Social Security cost of living increase is only $50, Social Security cuts the premium for Medicare by $50 so you don't get a dime less than you got last year. That is a hard and fast principle at Social Security. Seniors can't get less than they got the year before, period. It's their motto because it kills seniors when that happens. So you tell me, how is an agency that's that concerned about how much you get decide all of a sudden, oh, we're not going to pay you? It's not going to happen. But there are plenty of people out there that want you to believe it will. You need to ask the question, why is somebody telling me that? Why is somebody telling me? Now, mind you, I'm not saying that the government wouldn't like you to think that it's iffy. I'm just saying there are reasons for that, but it's not going to happen. They would like to tax you more. All right, so how are benefits determined? You get your full benefit at 66. If you're born after 1967, at 67, you get 100% of your benefit. If you take it early as 62, you get less. You get 75%. If you delay taking it past 66, you get these delayed retirement credits. Now, they're compounded. They're not compounded, but they are stackable. So 8% plus 8% plus 8% plus 8% gets you 132%. Now, I want you to pay attention to this. The difference between taking it at 70 and getting 132% and taking it at 62 and getting 75% is 177% more. It's like getting your full age retirement benefit and a 62-age benefit at once. It's massive. It cannot be underestimated how big it is and why it's so important to pay attention to that. 3 distinct retirement benefits. The retired workers benefit. That's the benefit that you get for the work, for the money that you earned and the contributions you made to Social Security. A spousal benefit. My spouse is eligible for a spousal benefit when I file, whether she worked a day in her life or not. It's all based on my contributions, not hers. And widow, widower, or survivor benefits provide a surviving spouse with a benefit after a primary worker's death, and that spouse or survivor never had to work at all. They're entitled to it because of the deceased worker's contributions, period. Okay, I'm going to go through by the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2015 rather quickly, and I'll tell you why. The vast majority of it doesn't apply to anybody on this call, including me. But there is one caveat to this that I have to explain. So let me explain what this was. I'll go very quickly. It changed Social Security for married couples and divorced spouses, creating 3 sets of rules. I'm going to go through those very quickly. The act didn't change the ability to elect or only a widow's benefit and then switch to a retirement benefit or vice versa, nor did it affect those who are never married. Now, let me explain what it is. If you'd come to me in 2015 before this act was passed, I might have told you to go into Social Security on your 62nd birthday and file. Now, I just spent a lot of time telling you might want to consider waiting. Why would I have done that? Because I would have told you to file and then immediately suspend. File the paperwork, hand it in, and then say, I'd like to suspend my benefit. So you never actually get a benefit. Why would I tell you to do that? Because if you're married, your spouse could go in the next day and file what's called a restricted application for only your spousal benefit. This would entitle her or him to receive half of your benefit and keep getting that all the way to their full retirement age, all the way to 70 if they want, and then switch to their own benefit. It was a great way. Excuse me for one second. I'm going to sneeze. No, not thought I was. Uh, it's a great way to get a lot of extra benefits and not affect your benefit at all, and postpone getting your benefit until it was as large as it could possibly be. So, what changed? If you're born prior to May 1st, 1950, I'm not even going to talk about it because you're already 76 years old. If you have not filed for Social Security, you've made a grievous error. File, collect. You're just throwing money away. If you're born after May 1st, 1950, before January 54, you've also made a mistake. You just turned 72. And if you haven't filed, you've made the same error. But if you're born after this January 2nd, 54, it has taken that voluntary suspension. You can voluntarily suspend, but your spouse can't file a restricted application anymore. Now, why do I bring all this up if it's something you just can't do? Because when they passed this law, they didn't just pass that, they added a thing called deemed filing. Deemed filing, which automatically triggers benefits. Deemed filing means when you go in to file, you used to have choices. Those choices are taken away from you. On the day that you file, you're going to fill out all the paperwork. You can tell them what benefit you want till you're blue in the face. They don't care. They're going to go to their computer. They're going to look up the largest benefit available to you on the day that you're filing, and that's the one that you get, like it or not. Here's the problem. That might not be the best benefit for you. And they're not going to tell you. They're just going to give it to you. Worse, once you take it, you have run out of options. You're done. You can't change it. If you're born after January 2nd, 54, and you're on this call, for you, timing strategies matter more than they ever have. When you choose to take your benefit, makes a huge difference. And you need to know what the right thing is to do before you walk into Social Security or schedule your appointment. All right, couples, considerations for married couples. If you're looking for spousal benefits, you must have been married for more than 1 year. The primary worker must have filed. The primary worker would be the one with a higher income. Generally, they must not qualify for a benefit on their own that is equal to or greater than 1/2 of the primary worker's PIA. PIA means primary insurance amount. It's not the same as your full retirement age benefit, but it's so close, we're just going to refer to them as the same thing for our purposes right now. Let me use an example here. John's primary insurance amount at full retirement age is $2,000. Jane, his spouse, would be eligible for 1/2 at her full retirement age. She would get $1,000. Very simple, right? Just a simple, hey, I get half. Here's the thing. If you file at your full retirement age, let's say it's 66, you get 100% of your benefit. If you take it early, we've talked about this already, at 62, you get less, 75%. If you file a benefit for your spousal benefits early, you don't get the 100%, you get 70%, even less than you do for your own benefit. Here's the example that we just used. John's $2,000 a month benefit. Jane at full retirement age would get half of that, 1,000. At 62, she would get 70% of the 1,000, or $700. Might not think that's a lot, but $300 a month is $3,600 a year over 10 years. That's 36,000. It adds up. All right. Also, you get these DRCs, the delayed retirement credits, 8% plus 8% plus 8% plus 8%. If you delay taking your spousal benefit, you don't get anything. You get the same amount that you would have gotten when you filed at your full retirement age. There are no delayed retirement credits for spousal benefits. I cannot tell you how many people I've seen waiting past their full retirement age, thinking that their spousal benefit is growing, and finding out later that they just threw away money. Because my own benefit, I could go to Social Security and maybe go back even a year and file it back, and they would give me a lump sum and then start my benefit. I can't do that with a spousal benefit. You can only file a spousal benefit forward, not backwards. These are things you just don't want to make mistakes on. Survivor benefits. At the death of the first spouse, a surviving spouse can receive a maximum of either his or her own benefit, the benefit of the deceased. So I don't want my benefit, I want the benefit of the deceased. I can take that, or 82.5% of the PIA of the deceased if the deceased filed early. So look, one of the reasons I get so in a froth here, a tither, about people filing early, about miscommunication, about how Social Security works, about solvency issues, is because solvency issues have scared 40% of us. The last 2 years, 40% of Americans have filed for their Social Security benefits at the earliest possible age, 62. 40%, 2 in 5, have taken it early. When we asked them why, we did surveys, why? This is a massive survey to ask this question, why? The two most common answers. The second one, well, I don't know how long I'm going to live. What if I die early? I want to get some. I put all this money in. I want to get something. The most common answer is, I put all this money in. What if Social Security goes bust? What if they run out of money? What if they can't pay me anymore? I don't want that to happen to me. And if I do, I want to get something before that does. So people are taking it. So imagine a married couple taking this as early as he can. He takes it at 62, or she takes it at 62. And then the worst happens, he passes away. But his spouse is now entitled to his full benefit. But the full benefit has been dramatically reduced because he took it early. It's 75% of what it could have been. So the government comes in and says, look, we'll bump that, if that happens, to 82.5%. Not a ton of good news, but it's at least something. Okay. The most common mistakes we see: higher wage earner files early, short changes survivor benefits, happens every day, thousands of times a day. And then both delay past full retirement age. Nobody claims that spousal benefit. They're just thinking that it's growing when it's not. All right, divorced individuals. Divorce benefits. To qualify for divorced spouse benefits, you must have been married for 10 years in a row to the same person. No stopsies and starties. No 5 years plus 2 years off plus 5 more years is not a 10-year marriage. It must be 10 years in a row. And it has to be no switch and dance partners in the middle. It's got to be to the same person. And you have to currently not be married. If you divorce, let's say you have 20 years of marriage and you divorce, and 2 years later you meet the love of your life and you remarry again, you do not have divorced spouse benefits. You have current spouse benefits after a year. Same benefit amounts and reductions apply for early claiming as they do for regular spousal benefits. So there's no difference. A spousal benefit and a divorced spouse benefit are absolutely equal in every way, with one, it's not tiny, one exception. It's actually pretty big. I've been married 49 years this year. My wife cannot file for Social Security for a spousal benefit because I'm waiting until 70. She can't take it till I do. But if we had been divorced for just 2 years, that rule is no longer there. She could go in and get divorced spouse benefits because of the 2-year wait. That's the only difference between spousal benefits and divorced spouse benefits, and it's actually pretty huge. All right, Bipartisan Budget Act for 2015 affected divorced spouse benefits the identical way that it did for regular spousal benefits. They don't apply if you're prior to May 1st, 1950, who cares? After that, before January 2nd, 54, again, you're 72 at least. But if you're born after January 2nd, 54, those restricted applications do not work. But if you're older than your spouse, your ex-spouse, and you're not currently married, you can claim your own benefit as early as 62 and then switch to a larger divorced spouse benefit when your ex-spouse reaches full retirement age. Now, listen to this. This can be done more than once if you have multiple qualifying ex-spouses. In other words, you have multiple qualifying ex-10-year marriages. I've seen two quite a bit. I've seen three once in a while. I've never seen four. I'm sure it's out there. I've just never seen it. All right. Common questions for those who get divorced. Do divorce benefits affect the current spouse or other dependents? I'm always amazed at how people are concerned. They don't want to affect their ex-spouse's benefits, or if they get benefits, is it going to reduce the other person's benefit? No, it doesn't. You could have two ex-spouses both receiving benefits. You could have a current spouse receiving benefits, and you could have children under the age of 18 or under the age of 26 that they're going to full-time school, all receiving benefits. Is my ex not notified, or are they notified if I'm claiming under their record? The answer is no. Just like HIPAA requires prohibits your doctor from sharing your medical information with anybody without your written permission, Social Security can't share your information either. Here is the only exception to that. If you can prove with a marriage license and a final divorce decree that you had a 10-year marriage with someone, they are bound to report to you the information necessary to determine whether you're entitled to a benefit on their account. That's it. Okay, considerations for widows and widowers. To qualify for widow benefits, you have to be at least 60 years old. That's actually very young. The youngest that you can get any retirement benefit other than this is 62. But widows qualify as early as age 60, but they must have remained unmarried. Widows or widowers, by the way, unmarried prior to their 60th birthday. So if your spouse dies when they're 40 and you remarry even for a weekend before your 60th birthday, you no longer have those benefits. But if you remain unmarried and you marry the day after your 60th birthday, you still qualify. Now, you had to be married at least 9 months prior to the death of your spouse. There are a couple of exceptions, but they're very few. The exceptions are death of a law enforcement officer in the United States killed in the line of duty, death of a full-time fireman or policeman killed in the line of duty. That's it. 8 months won't get you anything. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work. Okay, I'm going to do a quick case study here. This is really about why it's important to file correctly and have a plan. This is a widow client example. So I'm going to show you John, never elected, dies at age 64. Benefits on his full retirement age would have been $2,150. Jane, his spouse, is 5 years younger. At age 50, she dies. When he dies, she's 59. And she remains unmarried until her 60th birthday, so she's fine there. Jane's estimated benefit on her own, this isn't the widow benefit, this is her benefit, which she can't get until she's age 62. That one is $1,197, quite a bit different than the $2,150. All right, let's take a look at this and see what it says. The first benefit, or the first option, I call file without thinking, because it's what many of us do. We walk into Social Security without a plan, without understanding what we need to file correctly. And we ask, in fact, Social Security tells us on a report that the most common question asked at Social Security is, how much can I get? Well, if you're asking that question, you probably don't have an idea. You're asking them to figure it out for you. The problem is, I don't know if you know this, but Social Security employees aren't allowed to give you advice. They're trained not to give you advice. They can answer your questions, but they won't tell you that you're asking the wrong question, and they won't tell you that the answer to that question isn't the question you should be asking. You should be asking this question. And they won't tell you that it's the wrong amount or that you could do better. They just answer your direct questions. Worse, I've had over the years many a run in with a clerk at Social Security who gave wrong answers and had to send my clients back to talk to supervisors because I knew the answer was wrong. And sure enough, the supervisor corrected it and fixed it. But if they'd accepted it, they would have made a terrible error. It's really important to know ahead of time. So look, here's her option. She goes into Social Security. She asks, how much can I get? They say, well, the most you can get right now is $1,537. That's the age 60 survivor benefit that you're entitled to, that 2150, but you're getting it at 60, so you're only going to get 1537. She says, okay, I'll take it. We assume that she's going to live 25 more years to age 85. We're going to do simple math here, no complicated algorithms, no cost of living adjustments. We're just going to do simple math. So 300 times 1537, which is $461,100. Strategy one is a little better. We say, hey, you're working. You're making $40,000 a year. Work 2 more years and then take your own benefit. That's $1,197. It's less, but look, if you take that, then your own, then the survivor benefit, it's still there. And you get the full amount when you reach age 67. Switch. You'll have the ability to switch. So you're taking $1,197 and then you switch to take $2,150. Well, if you add that benefit up over the lifetime, it's almost $80,000 more money over your lifetime. I'm not even counting the 80 or 100,000 you made from working for 2 years. That's just from Social Security. Most people say number 2 here is better. Take the widow benefit, take the survivor benefit. At age 60, it's 1537. But you remember that 1197 benefit that you get at 62? You don't want to switch. That's less money. But it's still yours. You can't take both benefits at once, but if you don't take it, guess what happens to it? It grows all the way to your full retirement age. And then it gets those DRCs, delayed retirement credits, all the way to 70. By 70, that 1197 is turned into $2,108. That's when you switch. If you do that, you get $102,000 more, almost 103 more than if you had just taken it at 60 and said, oh, that's it. It is really important to know what your benefits are and to have a plan and not to give up on it. That's how you get the most out of the amount that you put in. I don't know anybody. I don't know how much money you have, and I don't care. It doesn't matter. Who can afford to walk away from $100,000 of income in retirement? I don't know anybody that can. I've never met anybody that can afford to do that. Okay, if you take your benefit at 62, 63, 64, 65, for some of you at 66, and you continue to work employed, and you earn more than $24,480 for every $2 more than that $24,480, they're going to reduce your Social Security benefit by $1. Let me put that in real terms. Let's say you're making $2,000 a month in Social Security, and you made $58,000 in income last year. At the end of the year, you will owe every dime of that $2,000 a month, the $24,000 that you collected, back to Social Security with interest. This is one terrible way to start retirement. How will they know? How will you know? Well, when you file your taxes, they'll report it to Social Security. Social Security will send you a letter. If you file in April, sometime in July, you'll get a notice with a debt collection. And if you can't pay it, Hey, I spent the money. I bought a car. I bought a boat. I went and I built it. I did a world cruise because I thought, what a great opportunity to do something because I have this extra money while I was working. They don't care. And they have a great collection system. They just stop paying you your Social Security. If you're lucky, they'll pay you half. And depending on how much the debt is, if it's enough, they'll stop paying it all to you. And look, stopping work eventually and then starting it again is a terrible way to retire. In the year that you turn full retirement age, for many of you it's 66, for some of you or many of you it's 67. In the year that you turn 67, let's say, if you earn more than $65,160 after you start taking your Social Security. So if you're born in January or February or March, this might be important to you. If you're born in October, November, December, it probably isn't. But if you earn more than that 65,160, for every $3 over that, they're going to take $1 of your Social Security back. This is one of those mistakes you don't want to make. By the way, Social Security does not know when you made the money. So if you earned $100,000 last year, but most of it was before you took your Social Security, fine, but save your pay stubs so you can prove when you got it. At least save the pay stubs when you took Social Security to prove you didn't earn that much before you took it. This is a problem that they might send you that letter whether they know or don't know because they don't know when you earned the money. Important. By the way, after full retirement age, so once you hit 66 or 67, whatever your FRA is, you can earn as much money as you want. And there is no earnings test, no reduction in your benefit. You can earn $1 billion and they're going to pay you your Social Security whether you earn it or not. But if you make that much money or a whole lot less than that much money, you are going to have a tax problem. Now, I said I would cover taxes tonight. I'm going to dig in. This is such an important topic. I wish I could ask you how many of you knew that Social Security was taxable before this evening. Surprisingly, about half of people we poll don't know, but it is. And it's taxable in sort of the worst way possible. Let me explain how it works, or let me explain why, or maybe I'll explain why I get so upset about this. Social Security, when the bill was written in 1935, only 12 pages. President Roosevelt actually wrote the bill and then signed it into law after it was passed. But he wrote the bill so that the income was tax free. Social Security income was never supposed to be taxable. It was scheduled that way. Now, why not, Dave? Well, because you already paid tax on it. The money that you paid tax on was your FICO contributions. Think about it. Have you ever been able to put the amount that you paid into FICO as a deduction on your taxes? No. Why not? Because it was intended to be taxable so that you would not pay tax on the benefit. Just like a Roth, if you pay tax up front, you don't pay tax when you take it out. That's how Social Security was set up. It was an incredible good plan. It was intended that way. But in 1983, remember, I think I told you, 1983 was a big year for Social Security because they figured out they have a problem with baby boomers. And so guess when this law changed? 1983. They didn't just change the retirement age, they also changed taxes on Social Security. And they targeted you and me, baby boomers. And they targeted us really well, way better than I think they realized. They had perfect aim. I'll explain how they did that in a second, but boy, is it a serious problem. All right. Some people ask how complicated is taxes on Social Security? Well, IRS publication 915 is only 33 pages long with a work page to tell you how to get through it. It's complicated. This chart that you see in front of you was developed and presented in 1983, and Congress passed it as a part of the law to tax Social Security. If you haven't written anything down tonight, you might want to write this term down. This chart represents provisional income. Provisional income. Let me just see here. Okay. Bear with me. Okay. I think we're okay. Everything seems to be fine. All right. Yep, we're good. I'm looking at my tech team. Give me a thumbs up. I just got to notice that tech joined. Okay, we're good. All right. So there we go. Provisional income. Let me tell you how it works, and then I'll explain what the problem is. So, if you're single and you earn more than $25,000 of provisional income, then 50% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. So, if you pay 10% on the last dollar of income, then it's 10%. If you pay 15, it's 15. If you pay 22, it's 22. If you pay 28, it's 28. If you pay 35, it's 35. But it's the highest marginal tax rate that you pay in your taxes. If you earn $34,000 of provisional income, 85% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. There's this wonderful line at 2,752 pages of Social Security law. 83 of them are about taxes. There's one line in there that says, we never tax 15% of your Social Security. I always get a kick out of that. If you're a married couple, doesn't matter how you're filing, jointly, separately, doesn't matter, single filing joint or individually, filing joint, married filing individually, doesn't matter. If you earn 32,000 in combined income of provisional income, 50% of your Social Security is taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. 44,000 means you pay tax on 85% of your Social Security at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. This is a big deal. It is transforming retirement as we know it. It is causing people to run out of money who are dealing with this. It is a massive problem, and most people don't know about it. Most advisors don't talk about it. Most advisors don't even talk about Social Security, but even fewer talk about taxes. This is a massive problem, and it is like a freight train running at baby boomers who are retiring, and they don't even know it. All right, let me explain what provisional income is, and then I'll explain a little more how this works. By the way, let me show you something. When I say that we were targeted, this has never, in 1983, this was put up, it has not once been prorated for inflation, not once. If your grandparents in 1983 had $44,000 of provisional income, they were amongst the highest 2% of income earners in retirement in our country. They were, by all standards, rich. Here's the problem. That's just not the case anymore. If they had prorated this, if they had prorated it, I wouldn't be talking about it. Here's what it would look like. That 44,000 today, if it were prorated at exactly the same rate that Social Security has been prorated, would be $142,000. But they didn't. And we have to deal with this. All right, so what's in provisional income? All your W-2 income, all earned gross income, all pensions, doesn't matter what kind of pension, military pension, disability pension, doesn't matter, counts as provisional income. All wages, all interest income, all tax-exempt interest income, So maybe you're thinking, hey, I bought municipal bonds so I could take tax-free income in retirement. That's great. It still counts as provisional income to try and get you to pay tax on your Social Security. All 1099 income. Maybe you work in the real estate world and you sell houses, or you do odd jobs and you get 1099s, or you report 1099 income. That all counts as provisional income. All real estate income. Maybe you have figured out that buying real estate can be a really good tax benefit. All sorts of rental income can, all sorts of discounts and depreciation and things, but all of your rental income counts as provisional income, 100% of it. All business income. Maybe you own a small business, or you are a partner in a business, or you own some stock in a small company, a small subchapter S corporation, or LLC. And at the end of the year, your partnership makes a profit, or you get what's called a K1. A K1 is a distribution of profits, but it's not necessarily money you got. That money might have actually been money that the company kept, but you paid tax on because it was profit. All of that still counts, whether you received it or not, as provisional income. Maybe you're like my daughter and my son-in-law, who overpay their taxes. They take the least amount of deductions they can to get a big refund. And they use that to buy, I've seen them buy cars, I've seen them take vacations, I've seen them do home improvements. It's their method to get there. I get it, but that counts in the year that you receive it. So you get a $5,000 tax refund, it counts as provisional income in the year that you receive it. All right, here's the interesting stuff. Here's where it gets dicey. Do you have an IRA, a 401k, a 403b, a 457, a SEP, a SERP, a SLRP, any tax deferred account, any of them, any qualified account where you put money in and deferred the tax, it grew tax deferred, and then when you take it out, you are obligated to pay tax on it. That's how an IRA or a 401k works, or a 403b. It's all the same. TSPs, anything like that. That money, now, some of you are saying, wait a second, hold on. My advisor has told me for years, pack those things full, put tons of money in my IRA because it grows tax deferred. I'll get more money when I take out, and my taxes will be lower then. Really? Have you looked at the tax code and what the brackets say that the income levels are? You might be really surprised at how much tax you're going to pay in retirement. But more importantly, did they talk about paying tax on something that you already paid tax on once? Because doing this may push you into a category where you're paying tax on something that you were never intended to pay tax on, called Social Security. And it might make a huge difference in the money that you can spend in retirement. It really doesn't matter how much money you have. It's how much money is available for you to spend. That's what matters. So few advisors talk about this, and it's one of the reasons I do this workshop. I mean, you're amongst about 100,000 people who have seen this workshop over the years. We have, I mean, a lot of people have watched this, and we've had tons and tons of feedback, and I sometimes blush at how good it is. But not nobody, but very few people talk about this. Oh yeah, let me talk about the one other thing I haven't mentioned yet. 50%, listen to this, half of your Social Security income, half of it counts as provisional income. Now you do the math. So you're making $50,000 in Social Security income this year or next year, or when you take it, 25 of that counts as provisional income before you make another nickel. before you have a pension, before you take a dime out of your 401k or your IRA, every dime of that, every dime of 50% of your Social Security counts as provisional income. All right. Look, I'm looking at the time, and I want to get to this because I think this is the most important thing I'm going to show you tonight. This is a case study on a married couple in retirement. They want to retire. I want to show you what this looks like because I want you to see the impact of not doing tax planning. This is a very typical client, 64 and 62, just over 34,000 in combined annual Social Security income. If both are both take it at age 60. Let me ask you if you'll help me here. Can you see me? uh, I lost connection for a second. Well, if you can go to the chat, just tell me you can see me. Uh, Let me know that you can still hear me or see me. Denise says she lost sound. Have you got it back, Denise? Okay, it says I'm back, so I'm going to go forward. All right. Yes, thanks, Dwight. All right, I'm gonna keep going here. Bear with me. All right, 34,000 combined annual Social Security. This is a big deal. And they're taking it at 62 because they've got 752,000 in 401ks and IRAs. Now, some of you are saying that's a lot of money, and I'm telling you, if you think $752,000 is a lot of money, this couple has a serious running out of money problem. Some of you are saying that's nothing. I got a lot more than that. Well, this couple with only 752,000 has a serious tax problem. We're going to give them 6% annual return on 3%, and with 3% inflation, they need $70,000 of per year in inflation adjusted after tax income. And they're living to 86 and 89 respectively. Here's what this looks like. If they file at 62, they're walking away from $186,496 in Social Security money, and they need every nickel of that to survive retirement. They just aren't paying attention. All right, here's what their cash flow looks like. The blue bars are their Social Security. The orange bars are their 401ks, their IRAs. It's $752,000. The black line, the curved line, that's their income need. That's the $70,000 in inflation adjusted income. At the end of the orange bars, that white space is white space. They're out of money. This is a cash flow that shows this couple making it 2/3 of the way through retirement. The one that started with $742 or $52,000 has run out of money 2/3 of the way through retirement, and they're living on Social Security. Now, can they live on Social Security? Maybe, but huge, massive lifestyle change. Massive lifestyle change. It is just not what you want to do. I'm going to show you a corrected cash flow, and then I'm going to show you the difference between the two. Here's what we did to fix the problem. Blue bars, still Social Security. Orange bars, still their 401ks, IRAs. It's a red line instead of the black line for their income need. But look at the difference here. By the way, the only thing we changed for this couple was how they filed Social Security. There's lots of other stuff we could do. There's lots of other tax planning we can do, but we just fixed the way they filed Social Security, and it saved them unbelievable pain and heartache. Now, how did it fix it? Let me show you the difference. Do you see those orange bars there? That's their 401ks, their IRAs. They have never paid tax on that money. When that money comes out, They owe taxes on it. There's no way out of that, no way at all for anybody. But the blue bars, they've already paid tax on. In the first scenario, if they take it out at the same time because the Social Security is not enough to get them their $70,000, they have to take both out. And by doing that, it causes them to pay tax not just on the 401ks and the IRAs, but on the Social Security as well. When we do it this way, they don't. This is a massive deal. And it's so important that you understand how this affects you. A little planning can save a lot of pain. All right, tons less in taxes, tons less, tons more in Social Security, 186,000. If they didn't run out of money, it's more than $100,000 saved in taxes. That's almost 300,000 combined more money towards retirement that they don't have because they filed early. All right, if you look at your statement does not include a cost of living adjustment. It never will. It'll tell you, we know in October what the cost of living is in next January. But I can't tell you what it's going to be the next year or the next year or the next year. But you've got to be able to estimate that to have any hope of coming up with a plan so that you can figure out where you're going to be. It assumes you work to a static retirement age of 62 or 70 or whatever your FRA is, 66 or 67. Most of us don't pick those dates. And then maybe the most egregious at all, I told you I've been married 49 years. My wife and I have, our finances are really intertwined. We have investment accounts in both our names. We have checking and savings accounts. We have car. We own a house together, but we don't have separate stuff. She didn't grow up in a royalty family with a massive inheritance, and neither did I. And our financial life is tied inexorably together. But Social Security looks at her like she doesn't know me. It looks at her record only, and it looks at my record only, and it won't show me how to coordinate those. That's crazy. And most of all, they cannot offer you advice. All right. This is what AARP says, whether you're close to retiring or you're just turning 50, you should check your Social Security earnings records every single year and make sure it doesn't contain errors. It's also important that you're aware that some of those have statutes of limitations on them. You should not delay in doing this. Okay. Every time I do one of these workshops, I always offer a complimentary, emphasis on the word complimentary. Some people prefer me to say free, personal Social Security analysis. I'm going to do a couple things here. I'm going to explain what that is or what it includes. I'm going to explain how we do it or who's going to do it. And then I'm going to explain why we do it. So bear with me, and then we're going to start the Q&A. All right, so what's it include? It will certainly include a break-even analysis. I think this is the least important thing we do, but it's there. We're going to do it for you anyway. It's super easy to implement, super easy to understand. It's point and click. But it might not be what you want. Maybe I don't like that. What are the alternatives, Dave? Can you show me instead of that if we do it this way? Yeah, absolutely. How about, what if I have a shortfall? We'll show you how to address that and make sure that you're okay. What if I don't have enough for the income I think I need? We'll work it out. It'll look at your retirement income cash flow and do a tax analysis. How do I save money? You've been talking about taxes like it's a big deal. How can I save money, and how much can I save? And what about income? Do I have enough to get an income plan that makes sense for me? And if I don't, how do I adjust that? And what if I have more income than I realized? How much do I have, and how can I spend it? We'll show you that as well. And then I mentioned Roth before. What about Roth? Should I be doing Roth? And if so, everybody talks about Roth, but nobody tells me, is it actually going to save me money? And no offense, how much and when? And what's the actual long term benefit of doing that? Because if there isn't one, I'm not sure I want to do it. I get it. Look, I cannot tell you over the years how many people have sat down with me and said, "Oh, I have a plan, I have a plan, I have a plan." But when I ask them to see the plan, almost nobody has a plan. They have a conversation about a plan, but the plan never seems to materialize. A written plan is so important, but more importantly, if your plan doesn't include Social Security, it doesn't include taxes, it doesn't include qualified, non qualified benefits, IRAs, 401ks, pension plans, life insurance, TSPs, any asset that you intend to use or have available to use during retirement, then it's really not a plan. That's what everybody needs. All right. If you haven't done this, it's important to do. You want to go to www.ssa.gov. You'll be able to download your own Social Security statement. You'll be able to check your earnings and make sure they're correct. Make sure there aren't zeros where there shouldn't be zeros. And then you're going to be able in a minute to schedule your consultation, your complimentary consultation in Social Security analysis. I'm going to give you two options tonight. Option one is a complete filing strategy, tax strategy overview, a retirement asset and Social Security coordination. It's going to focus on taxes and retirement assets. It's going to give you a Social Security analysis telling you what the best filing strategy is. It's the whole kit and caboodle, and it is 100% complimentary. I'll explain why we do that in a minute. But some of you on here are saying, "Hey, Dave, I'm not going to have taxable income. Most of my income in retirement is coming from Social Security." Let me put you at ease. If the only income you have in retirement is Social Security, only half of that counts towards provisional income, you will not have a tax problem. You won't have a tax bill at all. If you only have Social Security, you won't pay tax. It's when you have these other accounts that you have to worry about it, and that's when you need the analysis. Now, don't misunderstand me. It's important to realize that. But if you don't have that, you still need a timing strategy. That's why I've written the workbook. The workbook will get you through when to file. It's covered completely in there, and that's option two. So when you go to I'm going to give you a link in a second in the chat. We're going to put a QR code up in a second so that you can do this, and you'll be able to go and just fill it out. When you fill it out, it'll ask you some questions so that we can either get the workbook to you or schedule you. You'll have a calendar that'll come up, and you'll be able to pick when you want to sit down and do this. But important to know that you have a choice. The choice is you can get the workbook, absolutely complimentary, or you can get the analysis and you'll get the workbook as well. Okay. I told you I would tell you who is going to do this, and then I'm going to explain why. I'll do this very quickly. I've asked my partner. I told you I would talk about him at the very early part of the workshop. One of my partner's names is Frank Endres. Frank is a good friend of mine. I've known him for a really long time. Frank is one of the finest advisors. Well, look, I will tell you, I would never partner with somebody that wasn't excellent at this, that wasn't really, really good at this. And Frank makes me try harder. He has a degree from Purdue University in finance. I will tell you, in my industry, less than 5% of the advisors in the industry have actual degrees in finance. Frank has one. He's also owned and managed businesses. He's also owned and managed real estate. So if you have real estate and you're wondering for some help there, he's really good at that. He's also managed real estate for his father. Now, his father's in his 90s and not in great health, but he's done really well. Um, I misspoke. Frank's degree is actually in finance, but it's in financial planning, which I think is even more important. But he's worked and helped his father from a distance, no less, run his real estate business for years and years and years, um, because he's just exceptional at it. He understands it backwards and forwards. Frank also has the same designation I have. He's an RFC. That's a designation for retirement planning and investment management from the International Association of Retired Financial Consultants. He also has a designation for government pension planning, and Frank carries the same NSSA designation for Social Security, the only college accredited designation for Social Security in the country. He is exceptional at this. He he is not just good at it. He's just exceptional. Now, let me tell you the most important part, and the part that I think you should be reminded of, or at least know. Just like me, Frank carries a Series 65 through the SEC and FINRA, and he's a fiduciary advisor. Uh, that makes him a fiduciary. We act as fiduciaries. We would have either way, but Frank is required by law to act as a fiduciary in all of his conversations with you and with anybody that he works with. Um, all right, enough about Frank. Let me tell you why we do this very quickly. I'll ask our tech team to start queuing up the Q&A so that we can do that. I'll ask them to put in the chat the link, and then I'll ask them to also put the QR code up as well. Look, people ask why do you do this, Dave? If you don't understand this, it is a lot of work. A lot of work to sit with you and get your information. A lot of work to be able to actually do the planning that we do. It's not, hey, 5 minutes and we're done. This is a lot of effort and a lot of work and a lot of expertise that goes into it. So why do we do it for free? The answer is, well, let me tell you a quick anecdote about me. I love Costco. I go to Costco on a regular basis with my wife. Often I push her to go on Saturdays. It's crazy on Saturdays. It is so busy. It's ridiculous. But why Saturday? Because when I walk in on Saturdays, there are, it seems like, an endless supply of vendors who are cooking, frying, microwaving some delicacy that I've never tasted or tried and offering it to me. And I like to try things before I buy them. That's what this is. Oh, my wife and I even have a system. I go and I'll try something. She doesn't even look to see what it is. She just looks at me. If I get a big smile on my face, she says, "We'll take one." If I nudge her, she says, "All right, two." That's what we do on Saturdays. Most Saturdays you can find me at Costco shopping. It takes a long time and the crowds are crazy, but we love it. And I get to try new stuff because when I like something, I usually want more. That's what this is about. We have a sneaking suspicion that if you really see the value in what we do, if you see the comprehensive nature of it, the complete way that we approach it, if you see the wholeness of it and how good it is, and maybe you've got somebody that does this for you, you've had somebody in the past and you compare it, you're going to be wowed. That there was this guy, I always like to refer to him. His name was John Houseman. He was an actor in the 70s. He did a movie called The Paper Chase. He played Professor Kingsley, who was the contract law professor at Harvard. And in the 80s, he did these commercials on TV. And the commercials, he had this line at the end of the commercial. He'd say, "We get business the old-fashioned way," in this deep English accent. "We earn it." That's what this is. We're trying to show you how good we are because we know there's a really good chance if you see the quality of the work, you'll want more. we will have earned your business. That's it. It's the old fashioned way of doing business. But we have built a company that's pretty massive in size by doing that. I feel like you're incredibly lucky tonight. Frank does not do this often. Um, as I told you, he's my partner, and he's set aside time for you. I really, first off, you're just going to love him. But I, I wish I could talk to you after you've met him and seen him. You will absolutely rave about him. All right, enough said. I'm going to ask our tech team to pull up the Q&A, and thank you for hanging with me. I'm going to go through as many of these. I should be able to get through all of them, but we're going to start right now. Here we go. This is Lawrence. Question 2. Will that become taxable income due to the transfer from pre-tax to after-tax type annuity and possibly affect his benefits? I need the first part of that question due to IRMA. IRMA, by the way, is the extra income you pay if you make too much, or the extra tax you pay. It's not really a tax. It's a penalty that you pay if on your Medicare premium, if your income is too high. There's a first part of that, tech. I don't know if I can see it. Let me see if I can see it. Okay. Here it is. Husband transferred his 401k to a tax-deferred annuity. Question 1. If we transfer it over to a Roth annuity, will that affect us due to IRMA? The answer is yes. Will that become taxable income due to the transfer from pre-tax after-tax type annuity and possibly affect its benefits due to IRMA? Yeah. The answer is for the tax with the annuity, when you transfer from a taxable annuity or tax deferred to a Roth, it's income. And it is absolutely going to count. It's going to count as provisional income. So it's going to tax your Social Security that year, and it is going to count for IRMA. So yeah, 100%. Great question. Okay. Linda, how can we fight to get provisional income changed? That is a great question. Call your congressman, call your senator, but it's not going to happen. I don't want to be defeatist on this because I like the idea that you would do that. I'm much more concerned that you would call them to tell them to fix Social Security by raising the tax, the payroll tax, because that's a much bigger problem. The provisional income change, they would have to solve the other one before they could ever consider that. That is absolutely, you paying tax is what's keeping Social Security alive. And they're just really going to be difficult to get that fixed. But I love the incentive. There's no reason not to try. Great question. All right. Thank you. You're welcome, Lawrence. All right. Wow. This might be the fewest questions I've seen in a long time. Okay. All right. I'm going to give you 30 seconds or so in case you have a question that you haven't put in to do this. In the meantime, let me just say thank you to you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. We have maybe 100 people on here tonight, so a nice crowd. I'm grateful for you. Okay. Oh, here we go. Looks like a question. Mary, I looked at the tax table and up to 211,000 is 22%. That's correct. If you're filing jointly, that's correct. No, that does not change with provisional income. It's just that provisional income makes your income higher. So it makes you, if you hit a certain number, you hit that 44,000 if you're a married couple, 85% of your Social Security is going to be added on. Let's say you have $150,000 a year of income. Now all of a sudden, you've got all of your provisional income added to that, means that your Social Security. So let's say you made $50,000 in Social Security. normally not taxable, but all of a sudden it is. And so your income goes from 150 to 200. That's what's happening. And $50,000 a year, you can imagine that's $11,000 that you just added in federal tax alone to from their provisional income each year. Most people just haven't planned that. I'm not saying that you can't fix that. You can't overcome it. I'm just saying most people do not know that that's going to happen and they're not prepared for it. And if you have a plan that I mean, what's the worst possible thing that can happen to you when you're driving down the boulevard? Is you get blindsided. That is not what you want to happen to you when you're retiring. That's why. Thank you for the question. That's great. All right, Kelly, what if you're not prepared? Can you help? Yeah, that's what we're trying to do for you. Absolutely. That's exactly what we're trying to do for you. Great question. Julie, sorry. My co just shut down. I don't know what CO is. My computer probably just shut down. If you need help or you want the information, you can go to, let me just pull it up here, support at einsteinworkshops.com. Or if there it is, our tech team just posted it. Or if you're looking for the workbook or for the appointment, just go to sendworkbook.com, www.sendworkbook.com, or click the links. Denise, what if you die before you file for benefits? My family doesn't live to 72. Yeah, so look, if you have a terminal illness, Denise, I would say file. But if you don't, I mean, I don't know that there's a lot of correlation between how long your parents lived and directly to you. And there's very little correlation between how long your grandparents lived and how long you lived. If you don't have a specific disease and you don't have a terminal illness, I would say you might be surprised at how long you live. If you're 65 right now, there's a really good odds you're going to live well into your 80s. And you need to be aware. So the problem here is, hey, taking it a little early because I'm afraid I might run out is one thing, but taking it early and then not having enough because I lived longer than I did is a catastrophic problem. I hope that makes sense to you. Okay. Thanks for the question. Yeah, if you're on your phone, you can still use the QR code. Just hold it up to that QR code that's right there on the screen. And you should see hold the camera up. Don't take a picture of it. Just hold the camera. You'll see a little rectangle or oval that's yellow or orange. Touch that. It should take you right to the link. If it doesn't, take a screenshot of it and then go to the screenshot and touch it. It'll take you right to it. And it'll take you right to the link. Thanks for that. Okay. Next question. We've got a couple more here. So thanks for hanging with me. Okay. Okay, my company. Oh, your company just shut down. Company, I get it. So I'm assuming that means you're unemployed. And if it does, I don't know if you have 401ks or not, you need a plan, but you absolutely need a plan on how to go forward. I'll receive severance pay until 11/30/26. If I take my Social Security retirement income in 4/26 when I turn 65, will a percentage of my severance pay be subtracted from my Social Security retirement income? Yeah, it won't, not a percentage of your severance pay, but it will count if it makes it more than that 24,500. It will mean that you're going to pay, you're going to lose benefit for every $2 over that, a $1 reduction in your benefit. Severance pay is counted as income. So no way to avoid that. Okay, Mary, is a 403 taxable before you use it? I want to hold it until I have to take it. A 403B is taxable when you take it out. It is tax deferred. So you put the money in without paying tax, it grows tax deferred. And then when you take it out, this is exactly the kind of amount, that kind of program that gets you in trouble with taxes on Social Security. But it does not get taxed until you take it out. The longer you delay may actually cause you problems. You'd want to. This is exactly why I suggest, Mary, you get an analysis. But great question. Okay, TK, where in Pennsylvania are you? Near State College. Where are you? Okay, thank you for your time. Thank you, Jeannie. Appreciate it. Julie, thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. It's a pleasure doing these. I really enjoy it. Okay, this might be our last question. This is Sherry. I'm divorced. I receive a military retirement check and alimony from my ex-husband. How does that affect the amount of money I can make annually once I decide to take my Social Security? Okay, so your retirement check does not affect it at all. At all. The alimony does. It's income, but the retirement check doesn't. So, and this will only if this is there are two ways that I'm talking about. After you start receiving Social Security, you have to worry about taxes. Both of them are going to count as provisional income, but only the alimony is going to count for income in terms of the test if you take it before you turn your full retirement age. Great question. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Mary, again. All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, we have come to the end of the questions. I'm going to wish you all a wonderful evening. Great, great planning. And may you all have a wonderful, wonderful retirement. Thank you so much. We'll see you later. Good night.